Good morning, my dear students. So, welcome to our new lecture. In the previous lecture of chapter number 7, that is energy flow in an ecosystem, we have studied about the carbon cycle. Now, in this particular lesson, we are going to see the oxygen cycle and the nitrogen cycle. Okay, so as we know, the oxygen, which is very important gas present in the atmosphere, okay, every living organism requires oxygen for its survival. Okay, we cannot live without oxygen. We inhale oxygen, and this oxygen is utilized by our cell, okay, for performing certain reactions and generating the energy in our body. Okay, so oxygen forms 21% of the atmosphere. So as we all know that out of 100% of the gases present in atmosphere, 78% is comprised by nitrogen, whereas 21% of atmosphere is composed by, or it is occupied by, oxygen. Okay, it is also present in the hydrosphere and lithosphere. We have to keep in mind that oxygen is not only present in atmosphere, but it is also present in the hydrosphere, that is water bodies, as well as in the land, that is lithosphere. Okay, circulation and recycling of oxygen within the biosphere is called the oxygen cycle. So what is oxygen cycle? It is the circulation and recycling of oxygen within the biosphere is called the oxygen cycle. Okay, so the circulation of oxygen, O2 gas, okay, in the biosphere is nothing but the oxygen cycle. So we all know that oxygen is released from the animal, and that particular oxygen is released from the plants and it is utilized by the animals. Okay, this cycle too includes both biotic and abiotic components. Oxygen is continuously produced as well as used up in the atmosphere. You have to keep this in mind that the amount of oxygen produced by the plant, okay, that oxygen which is released by the plants are utilized by the other animals. Okay, oxygen is highly reactive and it readily reacts with other elements and compounds. ऑक्सीजन क्या है? हाईली रिएक्टिव है, मतलब बाकी जो एलिमेंट्स और कंपाउंड्स प्रेजेंट है एटमॉस्फेयर में उसके साथ इसका रिएक्शन बहुत आसानी से हो जाता है. ओके, as oxygen is found in various forms like molecular oxygen, that is O2, water, that is H2O, carbon dioxide, that is CO2, inorganic compounds, etc., etc. The oxygen cycle of the biosphere is extremely complex. देखो ऑक्सीजन का जो साइकिल है, मतलब उसका प्लांट से रिलीज होने से लेकर के यूटिलाइजेशन, और यूटिलाइजेशन के बाद वापस उसका ब्रेक डाउन होना, ओके, वापस वो एनिमल के डिकम्पोज होने के बाद उस ऑक्सीजन का वापस एटमॉस्फेयर में रिलीज होना, ये जो कंप्लीट प्रोसेस है वो क्या है, बहुत ही कॉम्प्लेक्स है. क्यों कॉम्प्लेक्स है ऑक्सीजन का साइकिल? क्योंकि ऑक्सीजन जो है वो सिर्फ O2 मतलब गैस के फॉर्म में ही अवेलेबल नहीं है, वाटर के फॉर्म में भी अवेलेबल है, H2O के फॉर्म में, CO2 में भी O2 आता है. ओके, और जो बहुत सारे इनऑर्गेनिक कंपाउंड्स प्रेजेंट है उसमें भी ऑक्सीजन क्या है, हमें देखने मिलेगा. Now, oxygen is released in the process of photosynthesis, whereas it is used up in the process like respiration, combustion, decomposition, corrosion, rusting, etc. etc. देखो जो ऑक्सीजन रिलीज हो रहा है प्लांट से, कौन से प्रोसेस की वजह से रिलीज हो रहा है? फोटोसिंथेसिस प्रोसेस की वजह से क्या हो रहा है, रिलीज हो रहा है. और इसी ऑक्सीजन का यूज कहाँ पे हो रहा है? रेस्पिरेशन के लिए यूज हो रहा है. ओके, कंबशन प्रोसेस मतलब आग लगाने के लिए. हमें एक चीज ध्यान में रखना है कि हम किसी भी चीज को जब बर्न करते हैं तो जो बर्निंग प्रोसेस है, दैट इज कंबशन प्रोसेस, ये इन द एब्सेंस ऑफ ऑक्सीजन नहीं हो सकता. ऑक्सीजन के बिना आग नहीं लग सकती. अगर आग लगाना है किसी भी चीज को तो ऑक्सीजन चाहिए. ओके, फिर डिकम्पोजिशन प्रोसेस में भी ऑक्सीजन हमें रिक्वायर्ड है. ओके, करोजन जो होता है, रस्टिंग जो होती है मेटल्स की, उसमें एक्चुअली क्या फॉर्म हो रहा है, वो मेटेलिक लेयर्स फॉर्म हो रहे हैं मेटेलिक ऑक्साइड्स के. तो ऑक्साइड आ गया मतलब वहां पे भी वापस ऑक्सीजन हमें देखने मिल रहा है. ओके, लेट मी गिव दिस एन एग्जांपल फॉर दिस. ओके, वेयर ऑक्सीजन इज यूज्ड इन रस्टिंग और करोजन प्रोसेस. We all know that iron gets corroded, okay, when it is kept in the atmosphere, that is exposed to atmosphere. If iron is exposed to atmosphere and moisture, it gets corroded, okay, उसको जंग लग जाती है. तो Fe, that is the symbol of iron, okay. So what happens whenever moisture is reacted, or atmospheric oxygen is reacted with this ferrous, okay, what we get FeO2. What we get? FeO2. And this FeO2 is nothing but ferric oxide, okay, and it is the layer of rust. It is the layer of rust, okay, which is there over a metal, okay, over a metallic surface. So in this process we can see that oxygen is utilized by the ferrous, okay. सो ऑक्सीजन का इस्तेमाल हुआ है कोरोजन प्रोसेस में फेरस के जरिए. तो ऑक्सीजन जो है वो बहुत सारे प्रोसेस में यूज्ड हो जाता है. Okay. Now, do you know that most of the microorganisms use oxygen for respiration? Okay. Such microbes are called aerobes. What they are called? They are called as aerobes. So, microorganisms which use oxygen for the respiration are called as aerobes or aerobic organisms, whereas microbes which do not need oxygen are called as anaerobes or anaerobic microorganisms, okay, or anaerobic microorganisms. So ऐसे माइक्रोऑर्गेनिज्म जो सांस लेने के लिए ऑक्सीजन का इस्तेमाल करते हैं उन्हें एरोबिक माइक्रोऑर्गेनिज्म कहा जाएगा, और ऐसे माइक्रोऑर्गेनिज्म जो सांस लेने के लिए ऑक्सीजन का इस्तेमाल नहीं करते हैं उन्हें एनाएरोबिक माइक्रोऑर्गेनिज्म कहा जाएगा. Now, oxygen is important for the synthesis of proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. It is also used in various chemical reactions. Okay. Then O3, that is ozone, is produced from oxygen through various atmospheric processes. So we all know that above the stratosphere of the Earth, okay, एटमॉस्फेरिक के 5 लेयर्स एटमॉस्फेयर के, उनमें से एक लेयर है स्ट्रेटोस्फेयर. उसके ऊपर हमें क्या देखने मिलता है? ओजोन का लेयर देखने मिलता है. तो ये जो ओजोन है वो हमें अल्ट्रा वायलेट रेडिएशन से प्रोटेक्ट कर रहा है. और ये ओजोन भी जो प्रोड्यूस हो रहा है वो कहाँ किससे प्रोड्यूस हो रहा है? ऑक्सीजन से प्रोड्यूस हो रहा है. ऑक्सीजन के बहुत सारे रिएक्शंस होते हैं एटमॉस्फेयर में, एंड आफ्टर सर्टेन रिएक्शंस O3 इज फॉर्म, दैट इज नथिंग बट ओजोन. ओके. So from this we can understand that oxygen is very important gas present in the atmosphere, okay, and it is very much difficult to understand the oxygen cycle because a lot of processes are dependent on oxygen, and oxygen is found in various form, okay. So this is about the oxygen cycle. Now we will see the nitrogen cycle, okay. Now nitrogen, as we all know, the 78% of the earth atmosphere, okay, is occupied by the nitrogen. 78% nitrogen is present in the earth's atmosphere, okay. It is necessary for the maintenance of the cycle of nature, and this nitrogen is very much important for maintaining the balance in the environment, okay. The circulation and recycling of nitrogen gas into the form of different compounds through various biotic and abiotic processes in nature is called as nitrogen cycle. So what is nitrogen cycle? It is the circulation and recycling of nitrogen gas, that is N2 gas, okay, into the form of different compounds through various biotic and abiotic processes in nature is called as nitrogen cycle. So नाइट्रोजन जो है वो भी अलग अलग फॉर्म में हमें देखने मिलेगा अर्थ में. फॉर एग्जांपल अमोनिया है NH4, NH3 है, के NO2 नाइट्रस ऑक्साइड है, NO3 नाइट्रस ट्राइऑक्साइड है. So there are various forms of nitrogen, okay, which is there on the earth. All the organisms participate in the nitrogen cycle. It is an important component of proteins and nucleic acids. So nitrogen is one of the important component in proteins and nucleic acids. Okay. As compared to other elements, it is inactive and does not easily combine with other elements. You have to keep this in mind that nitrogen is not a readily active material. So it is not going to react with any element easily. Okay. Whereas we have seen that oxygen is a readily active element, okay. So nitrogen is opposite to that of oxygen in terms of reactivity. and most organisms cannot use the free form of nitrogen. Okay, so there are a lot of organisms which cannot use the free form of nitrogen, that is N2 gas cannot be utilized easily by most of the organisms. Now, important processes of the nitrogen cycle. One of the important processes is nitrogen fixation. Okay, so what is nitrogen fixation? It is the conversion of nitrogen into nitrates and nitrites through atmospheric, industrial, and biological processes. So when nitrogen, that is N, okay, nitrogen is converted into nitrates and nitrites. Okay, so nitrates, that is NO2, and nitrites, that is NO3. Okay, so this conversion of nitrogen from nitrates to nitrites, it is called as nitrogen into nitrates and then again to nitrite. Okay, this conversion is called as nitrogen fixation. Okay, it can be take place using atmospheric, industrial, or biological processes. Then ammonification. What is ammonification? It is the release of ammonia through decomposition of dead bodies. Okay, so release of ammonia through decomposition of dead bodies and excretory waste of organisms. So as we know, ammonia, that is NH3. Okay, NH3 molecule, it is released from the waste of the living organisms and the dead bodies of the organism. The nitrification is there. It is the conversion of ammonia into nitrate, nitrite, and nitrate. Okay, so the conversion of ammonia, that is NH3, into nitrite and nitrate is nothing but nitrification. Then denitrification, obviously it is going to be opposite to that of nitrification. So what is denitrification? It is the conversion of nitrogen compounds into gaseous nitrogen. Okay, so compounds, for example, NO2 is there. Okay, then NO3, this is also a nitrogen compound. Then NH3, NH4, all these are the examples of nitrogen compounds. And which, when these nitrogen compounds are converted into nitrogen, gaseous nitrogen, that is N2. Okay, so this particular process is called as denitrification. Okay, so this is all about the nitrogen cycle. So in this particular lesson, we have seen about the oxygen cycle and about the nitrogen cycle. What is important for you, that you have to know the definitions of this cycle. It is not difficult to learn. Okay, so know the you have to learn the definition properly. You must know the forms, various forms of oxygen. Okay, and you must know the various forms of nitrogen, as well as you have to understand all these four processes properly. Okay, that is nitrogen fixation, ammonification, denitrification, and denitrification. Okay, so by this we have completed our chapter number 7, that is energy flow in an ecosystem. Okay, so your homework is that you have to complete this particular exercise of the chapter. Okay, so from the next lecture we will start our new chapter. Until then, goodbye.